General Clorg, Old Grizzle Marvex, had seen it all. At least, that's what his battle-scarred tentacles and countless medals proclaimed. In the neon corridors of the Xerixian homeworld of Balthazar Prime, the retired war hero spent his twilight years lecturing a new generation of hot-blooded aliens on the finer points of interstellar warfare. His signature warning, repeated like a worn-out record at every briefing, was as clear as the luminescent skies above. Never, under any circumstance, attack the sleeping humans or be destroyed. That's no joke. Most of his audience, a raucous mix of brash cadets and impulsive commanders, would roll their many eyes and mutter, "Old Grizzle, you're exaggerating. Your memory's as fuzzy as your space helmet's visor." Among them was Commander Zarnok Vex, the epitome of youthful arrogance, whose flashy holographic uniform and penchant for risky maneuvers had earned him both accolades and raised eyebrows. He believed that the humans were an easily dispatchable nuisance, a weak, slumbering species whose one measly spaceship was nothing more than a space flea compared to the might of the Xerixian armada. On a crisp cosmic morning, as the twin suns of Balthazar Prime dipped below the shimmering crystalline mountains, Commander Zarnok prepared to lead a daring assault on a human outpost believed to be in a state of hypersleep. His fleet, an awe-inspiring armada of 1,000 gleaming warships, each engineered with an elegant mix of lethal design and extravagant color schemes, had long prided itself on being the apex predators of the galaxy. Zarnok's strategy was simple: strike fast, strike hard, and then have a good laugh at the humans' expense. In the bustling command center aboard the flagship Galactic Giggle, Zarnok barked orders with all the confidence of someone who'd never been proven wrong. "Prepare the fleet! Engage the humans at will! I want no hesitation. Let's show these lazy bipeds how a Xerixian does combat." General Clorg, seated in a creaky, well-worn chair near the command dais, cleared his throat and interjected, his voice gravelly with both age and experience. "Commander, heed my warning. Never attack the sleeping humans. Their simplicity is their greatest weapon. They're unpredictable, cunning, and above all, prone to waking up in ways you wouldn't believe." Zarnok smirked, dismissing the old general's words as mere relics of a bygone era. "General, with all due respect, your days of glory are behind you. Times have changed. Humans are a weak, slumbering nuisance, and our might will crush them without effort. I assure you I've got this under control." With that, the fleet set off, a dazzling procession of 1,000 warships, slicing through the cosmic void like a flock of radiant comets. The voyage was punctuated by confident chatter among the crew. "You heard the commander," one ensign declared over the comms. "Humans, they're just snoozing puppies waiting to be outplayed." As the armada neared the designated human system, sensors began picking up a curious signal. Commander Zarnok leaned over the central holographic display, eyes narrowing at the sight of a single, modest human spaceship, adrift in an otherwise vast sea of empty space. The craft was small and unimposing, a ragged relic compared to the hulking Xerixian warships, and to the young commander's eye it looked almost comical. Zarnok couldn't help but let out a hearty guffaw. "Look at that! A single pathetic human ship dares to challenge us? It's laughable." His laughter echoed through the command center, triggering a wave of chuckles and even outright roars of mirth among the officers. "We're not here to play hide-and-seek with toy ships," one of his lieutenants quipped. For a brief, shining moment, the entire fleet of 1,000 warships was united in uproarious laughter at the absurdity of the situation. In that instant, every alien present believed that the humans were nothing more than a cosmic joke. Yet as the laughter reached its crescendo, something entirely unexpected unfolded. Before the Xerixian crew could even finish their boisterous guffaws, the lone human spaceship, unassuming and quiet until then, activated an advanced defensive maneuver. In a flash of brilliant, blinding light, A torrent of energy beams erupted from its engines, slicing through the void like cosmic scissors. Within moments, more than half of the entire Xerixian fleet was reduced to smoldering space debris, tumbling helplessly into the gravitational maw of a nearby star. Silence replaced laughter in an instant. Commander Zarnok's eyes widened in disbelief as alarms blared throughout the flagship. What just happened?" he shouted, scrambling for the holopad to assess the carnage. In a heartbeat, his once mighty armada had been decimated by what he now grudgingly recognized as a single human ship. The shock was palpable. Officers fumbled, communications went haywire, and panic began to ripple through the ranks. "Retreat! All units, initiate immediate withdrawal," Zarnok ordered, his earlier bravado now replaced with sheer terror. His voice, once commanding and full of swagger, now quavered with the realization of his grave miscalculation. The surviving warships scrambled to execute a chaotic retreat, their once proud formations dissolving into a disordered scattering of silver streaks. The mighty Xerixian armada, once poised to strike with absolute confidence, was now forced into a hasty, shameful retreat back to their homeworld. Back on Balthazar Prime, the mood in the grand conference hall of the Intergalactic War Council was somber. Commander Zarnok arrived, his uniform slightly singed and his pride in tatters. The room was hushed, save for the low hum of the council's ambient lighting and the occasional crackle of ancient speakers. At the head of the hall sat General Clorg, old Grizzle Marvex, leaning back in his creaky chair, with a knowing twinkle in his many weary eyes. "Commander Zarnok," General Clorg intoned, his voice a blend of amusement and chiding wisdom, "would you care to share what occurred on the battlefield?" Zarnok, his face reddening with a mix of embarrassment and lingering fear, began his report in a measured tone. "General, we encountered a lone human spacecraft. Initially, our sensors indicated it was unimpressive. In our haste and admittedly overconfidence, we dismissed it. Our fleet was amused. But then, in a turn of events that defied every expectation, that single vessel launched a counter-offensive, and more than half our ships were destroyed before we could even process what was happening. I ordered an immediate retreat." A moment of heavy silence ensued, punctuated only by the soft hum of ancient data servers. Then, as if the tension were too much for his ancient heart to bear, General Clorg burst into a deep, booming laugh. "I told you so!" he exclaimed, his laughter echoing off the marble-like walls of the council hall. "And you thought I was exaggerating? That, my dear hothead, was only one human ship. Imagine what they're capable of if we dare engage them while they're asleep." The assembled officers exchanged sheepish glances. Some scratched their heads, or the alien equivalent thereof, while others mumbled apologies that were half-hearted at best. Zarnok, still reeling from the encounter, could only muster a weak smile as he realized the gravity of his misjudgment. General Clorg's eyes twinkled mischievously as he leaned forward. "You know, young commander, sometimes in war it's not brute force that wins the day, but cunning, patience, and a touch of diplomacy." He paused for dramatic effect before adding, "In fact, let me show you something." Before Zarnok could protest, General Clorg stood up, his ancient frame surprisingly spry. The doors of the council hall swung open, and in stepped two elegant figures. They were Earth females, beautiful, confident, and with an aura that suggested they were no strangers to the art of negotiation. One was Lola, with a wry smile and eyes that hinted at mischief. The other was Cassandra, whose calm demeanor and graceful poise belied an inner strength. General Clorg winked at Commander Zarnok as he walked past him with Lola and Cassandra flanking his side. "Behold," he declared, "the only race I have ever met that I could not beat in combat, but whose diplomatic route, I might add, comes with some rather delightful extra benefits." A ripple of amused laughter swept through the council hall. Zarnok's jaw dropped in a mix of disbelief and reluctant admiration. "So, they're human?" he managed to sputter, still reeling from both the battlefield debacle and the unexpected entrance of the two ladies. "Indeed," replied Lola, with a playful tilt of her head, her tone laced with both charm and challenge. "We may not be the fiercest warriors in the galaxy, but we do know how to negotiate a treaty and a good dinner invitation." Cassandra added softly, "Sometimes, Commander, it pays to keep one's enemies close. And sometimes it pays even more to charm them first." Her words carried the weight of experience and the subtle promise of future alliances. If only Zarnok would learn to temper his arrogance with wisdom. General Klaug clapped a thick, scaled hand on Zarnok's shoulder. "Learn from this, young one. Let this be a lesson. Never underestimate an opponent, even if they appear to be sleeping. And sometimes the path to victory isn't through combat at all, but through understanding, patience, and yes, diplomacy." The room was filled with a blend of laughter, reflective silence, and the faint sound of someone scribbling notes in the back. Zarnok, humbled yet enlightened, nodded slowly. I understand, General. I suppose I let my pride get in the way of strategic thinking." General Klaug smiled, his ancient eyes twinkling with mirth and wisdom. "Ah, youth. It's a fine seasoning for a battle, but too much of it can spoil the stew. You have the fire, Commander, but remember that even the fiercest flames must be tempered by wisdom, lest they burn everything you hold dear." As the meeting adjourned, General Klaug strolled out of the council hall, still accompanied by the charming Earth ambassadors. He paused at the door, casting one last knowing glance over his shoulder at the still reflective Commander Zarnok. "Remember, my boy," he said with a grin, "sometimes a laugh in the face of danger is a sign you're not taking it seriously enough. And if you're ever in doubt, just ask yourselves, would you rather be charming or charred?" Zarnok could only manage a rueful smile and a silent vow to heed the old war hero's advice in the future. The image of the lone human spaceship, its unexpected counterattack, and the disastrous consequences of underestimating a snoozing enemy was burned into his memory. It was a humbling reminder that arrogance in warfare could be as dangerous as a misfired photon torpedo. In the weeks that followed, as Balthazar Prime began the long and painstaking process of rebuilding its shattered fleet, whispers of the sleeping human incident spread like interstellar wildfire. Cadets in training recited the tale as both a cautionary fable and a source of reluctant laughter, a testament to the unpredictable nature of the cosmos. General Klaug's warnings became legendary, not as outdated relics, but as essential lessons forged in the crucible of unexpected defeat. Meanwhile, Commander Zarnok found himself increasingly at odds with his own instincts. Every time he felt the rush of battle readiness, he recalled the catastrophic miscalculation and the wry smile of General Klaug. Even during routine drills, he'd pause, half expecting to see a tiny human spaceship lurking in the void, ready to turn his bravado into a cosmic punchline. One day, during a diplomatic reception convened to mend intergalactic relations, Zarnok was unexpectedly seated next to Lola. She leaned in, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "I heard you were the commander during the incident," she said softly, half teasing, half curious. "I must say it takes a special kind of bravery to learn humility on such a grand stage." Zarnok, ever cautious not to show his inner turmoil, attempted a laugh. "Bravery? I'd call it strategic re-evaluation." He offered a half-smile, but deep inside he knew the truth. His overconfidence had cost him dearly. Lola continued, "Sometimes the universe has a way of reminding us that even the mightiest can fall if we don't keep our wits about us. It's like that old saying from your own kind. If you attack the sleeping humans, you might just wake up to a disaster. Her tone was gentle, laced with the wisdom of someone who'd seen too many interstellar wars to take pride in brute force alone. The conversation left Zarnok pondering long after the reception had ended. In a quiet moment aboard his ship, he replayed the events of that fateful encounter over and over, each iteration deepening his resolve to learn from his mistakes. He began to understand that while pride and bold action were necessary in battle, they had to be balanced with caution and sometimes a healthy dose of diplomacy. Weeks later, during a joint military exercise designed to simulate potential encounters with hostile forces, Zarnok surprised everyone, including himself, by proposing a mission that involved negotiation rather than immediate aggression. General Klaug, who had been watching the young commander's progress with a mixture of pride and mirth, couldn't help but applaud the change. "You see, Commander," the old war hero remarked during a debriefing session, "a battle is not always won by the loudest blaster or the flashiest maneuver. Sometimes it's won by the quiet art of understanding your enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and by knowing when to laugh at your own mistakes before they become your undoing." As time passed, the Xerixian armada grew stronger, not just in numbers, but in wisdom. Their encounters with humans became less about raw combat and more about strategic partnerships. The once feared interstellar fleet now found itself engaging in high-level diplomatic talks with Earth, forging alliances that would ensure peace, and, as General Klaug liked to remind them with a twinkle in his eye, the occasional delightful dinner invitation. For his part, General Klaug became a revered figure, his legacy cemented not only by the scars of past battles, but by the lessons he imparted to a generation that had once been too eager to laugh in the face of danger. His parting words to Commander Zarnok, still echoing in the corridors of the rebuilt warship hangars, served as a constant reminder: never underestimate the enemy, even if they're sleeping, and always keep a spare set of earplugs for when they wake up screaming. And so, on Balthazar Prime and throughout the cosmos, the legend of the sleeping humans, and the day a single, unassuming ship brought a mighty armada to its knees, lived on as a tale of humility, caution, and the curious art of diplomacy. It was a story told in hushed tones by cadets before their first battle drills, a humorous anecdote recounted by old soldiers in dimly lit cantinas, and a constant reminder that in the vast, unpredictable theater of space, sometimes the greatest victories come not from the strength of your fleet, but from the wisdom of knowing when to listen to an old, retired war hero. As for Commander Zarnok, his journey from hot-headed impetuosity to measured strategy was marked by scars, laughter, and many lessons learned at the expense of his pride. He would never forget that fateful day, the day he witnessed firsthand that the humans, despite their sleepy demeanor, were a force not to be trifled with. And whenever he caught a glimpse of a human ship on his viewfinder, he'd lower his voice and murmur, "Never under any circumstance attack the sleeping humans." General Klaug, ever the sage and occasional prankster of the cosmos, continued to stroll the halls of the council with a contented smile and the company of his charming Earth ambassadors, Lola and Cassandra. His parting wink at the young commander was not merely a gesture of triumph, but an invitation to learn that in war and in life, sometimes the best strategy is to keep your heart open to unexpected allies and your mind open to the wisdom that only time and experience can provide. In the end, the sleeping humans had taught the Xerixians an invaluable lesson, that even in the midst of intergalactic conflict, humor, humility, and a dash of diplomacy could bridge the gap between enemies and forge bonds that transcended the boundaries of space. And as the stars twinkled overhead, casting their gentle light upon the rebuilt fleet and the ever-watchful eyes of General Klaug, one truth remained clear, a truth that would echo across the universe for generations to come. Never underestimate the power of a well-timed wake-up call.